Good morning. And thank you for coming along to the Landlord Services Board Executive Group. And we are being recorded for YouTube purposes. My name is Terry Daubney. I'm the chair of the Waverley Tenants Panel, and I will chair this meeting today. And I'm assisted by our portfolio holder, Councillor Paul Rivers, who will act as the vice chair today.
Keep the draft back.
Keep the draft back, yeah, and kick me to keep me awake. Thank you. So, as customary, we'll go around the room, and if you could just quickly introduce yourselves, so that people on YouTube know who you are. So, Annalise, could we start with you, please?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Annalisa Howson. I'm the Assistant Director of Housing for Waverley and Guildford Councils.
Hi, my name's Dan Young. I'm visiting Annalisa today. I work in the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government in the Social Housing Directorate, and I'm here to observe what's going on and sort of like be immersed as best as possible in everything that you're doing today.
Good morning, I'm Rod Blackmore, Tenants Panel member and chair of the Customer Experience Group.
Morning, Dave Madams, Tenants Panel member for Riverside Court.
Good morning, my name's David Williams and I'm a council tenant.
Good morning, my name's Alan Morrison. I'm a councillor for Cranley West.
Good morning, Councillor John Rabini, and I represent Shottermill on the County Council, Borough Council and Town Council.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Jackie Keane and I am a councillor for Haslemere West.
Good morning, my name is Andrew Lawton. I'm the councillor for Webburn and Farnham.
Morning, Katie Riley, and I lead on our energy efficiency projects.
Good morning, Sharon Thompson, Service Improvement Manager.
Good morning, Hugh Wagstaff, Head of Housing.
Morning, Matt Alexander, Housing Operations Manager.
Thank you very much and welcome, especially to Daniel. Nice to see you. Thank you. So, Marta, do we have apologies?
Yes, we do have apologies from the Councillor Janet Crow and tenant panels and Sally Purcell from Tenants Panels.
Thank you. And if I could just had Tenant Panel member Rob Blackmore. Unfortunately, his wife passed away last week, so sent our condolences. Thank you. So we move to number 2, notes from the previous meeting. Have you all had the opportunity to read them? And do you have any comments? Anybody have any comments? No matters at all? Thank you very much.
Noted.
Declarations of interest, do we have any?
No,
None
I
at all?
haven't received any declaration of interest prior to the meeting.
And questions from members of the public?
No, I haven't received as well.
Thank you. And questions from members of the committee?
No, I haven't received any.
That's it. So we move on to the meat of the meeting, please. We start with Hugh Wagstaff, the Head of Services report. Thank you, Hugh.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Just a few items, because there's a lot in the agenda today. And we're going to, the first item is the responsive repairs contract client action plan, which Matt is leading on. Just an update, we're doing exception reporting. There's two issues, is around contract management. We're still waiting for a further plan that we can agree with Ian Williams. We've got another draft and we haven't had time to review that, but I think they're getting the message that we want. We want a clear plan with clear actions that will make improvements, so we're still working on that. And then the other one that's slipped is Ian Williams' control, is the IT around managing their subcontractors. and we're looking to get an update from them in April 25. I think later in the agenda, when we look at the performance dashboard, we can talk more about Ian Williams' performance and where we're going with there, unless anyone's got any questions on the action plan that is as an appendix to this report. No. So the other next, apologies, sorry, yes, Councillor Rowe.
Can I just ask about the IT, because obviously it's quite key. Have you any idea when, because all it says on here, on both on that one, and that they will upgrade their IT system, they're both late. I mean, update March 2025. So have we any idea how they're progressing?
I haven't, because they're telling us that they would be giving us an update in April. So I don't know, Matt, if they've been talking to you about that so we haven't got anything on their subcontractors. So we are pressing them.
I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? If the IT isn't right and the subcontractors aren't sort of getting the work sorted out and what have you, this is the majority of the problem that we've got, isn't it, with the subcontractors?
I mean, that's what we infer in terms of our analysis. Yes, I mean the trades that are a problem most of them are linked to subcontractors, and if they haven't got the IT, they can't effectively manage them, and that's correct. So that's why that's in the action plan. That's why it's so important that they manage their subcontractors, because where they're managing their direct labour and they're doing it straightforward jobs, that's all fine. So when it gets complicated, i.e. they have to use subcontractors. And again, so that is a priority for Matt to work with them in terms of getting them to manage their subcontractors.
We've been hearing that for the last 2 years. I don't hear anything new. And that's my real worry. We're just going round and round the same old circle.
Can I just go back on that? I mean, Matt is doing a very, very good job. I mean, I do applaud you. It's hard going with them. I mean, is it possible to give them a deadline to get this sorted out?
I mean, yeah, of course, we could give them target and deadlines. I think it's, as we've discussed at previous meetings, it's about Matt, I suppose myself, and Adrian, the contract manager's persistence on constantly just chasing them to this position where we are currently. And as you say, this is the core of the work's getting done. This is the stuff that's going to the subcontractor. And I've spoken to them. If they can get that right, or they can manage that, their satisfaction ratings overall will increase. And as I say, I think all we can ask Matt is really just to make this a priority, continually to pressurise them on this area, and the IT. But I totally understand the points that are being made by members.
I just wonder if refer the meeting to agenda item number 7, which talks about the responsive repairs options appraisal, and what the team is doing to in the longer term.
Yes, and we discussed this last night at ONS. I think we've got to see them as 2 separate projects, because the options appraisal is for 27. So Matt's got 2 real channels of work. The first is getting the service right with Ian Williams as best as possible, but then we're also working towards 27, and what does that look like? So they're kind of linked, but they're not. We can't, just because we think, oh, we're going to change contractors in 27, or we've got the potential to change, that we just let Ian Williams get away with it. No, we've got to be constantly on them, and that's what Matt and Adrian and the team have to do, and to break the cycle that's been mentioned. But as I said, I think hopefully the client action plan really shows that the team have got a plan to actually improve the performance of the contractor. And I think so it's just to highlight that the core of what Ian Williams is doing is fine. It's these bits, the minor works and the subcontractors. And usually they're linked as well, because many of the subcontractors do minor works as well. So if they can crack that, the overall satisfaction ratings will increase, and we're going to talk about that later. And it will be all good for everybody. Did you want to say anything?
Can I,
I was just going to highlight, it's not all of the subcontractors, because some of the subcontractors are doing really well and they get high scores. It's just certain contractors, and sometimes it's like the roofing or the drainage, the big elements, that are causing some of the issues.
could I sort of, well, I'm wondering whether it's worth getting Ian Williams to come in again to talk to this committee, so that we can ask him directly why he's dragging his feet so long, why it's taking so long to get all this in place. You know, I think it would be good to have a face-to-face with him again, so that, well, we can maybe make him squirm a little bit.
So Chair, Vice Chair said something we should discuss afterwards, and how that meeting would be arranged and what format. That'd be the best. I mean, July will be the anniversary, Councillor Rivers, when you did meet them. So it is a year's time does go on. Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's keeping the pressure on, isn't it? I mean, coming from you yourselves as officers, but from this board as well. Yes, I'm sure we support that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll go on so again, in the annex is there's the action plan on the key to key process, which again Matt is leading on. It's just the original. We'll highlight the updates, and then there's been some actions completed, which when we look at the dashboard appear to have an improvement in performance. But we can look at that improvement in performance when we get to the dashboard. But so basically to give members reassurance that action plan has been implemented and up and running, and we should see some results from that. Move on to decent home standard.
Sorry, could we just come back to that?
Apologies.
Thank you. On the key to key voids, I've got a few questions on that. Really, is number 2, which is the reinforcement of the 4 weeks notice. Have you could you give us any idea of how many that involves in voids? Is it a very high problem of people not giving 4 notice, or is it just odd ones?
Sorry, I'm not. Standard is we expect every tenant to give 4 weeks notice. Is that?
Yes, that's the question. But was that a real problem? Is that, every tenant, or is that an odd few?
It was just the inconsistency. So it was because you've got different teams almost in silo. There was a consistency in enforcing that. So it's about ensuring we've got one process, one policy, and there will be exceptions to the rule, but they need to be exceptions. So yeah, it's just about the consistency. I don't know how the numbers, but it was an issue. It has been an issue.
Yeah, thank you. I'm having trouble following it on ModGov on the computer. Perhaps you could give us the page numbers you're on, then we can actually follow you rather
25.
than trying to flick through and through to find it.
25.
Thank you.
So the following question really to that is that, and it's really comments on the actions, but exploring the feasibility of preventing tenants moving where the existing tenants agreement has been breached. And I think the thing with that is that works both ways. If a tenant has left their property in a particularly bad state, then yes, there should be some action for that. But it works at the other end that if that's happening, you should get a fully decent home with no snags, everything else to move into. So, and the last thing is really, which to me is a key point, is number 25 on page 26 which is the review and benchmark on the void standards, which is not due to be completed until October and not started. But how can we judge what's happening now in the speed that we are getting some of these voids out? That what standard are we working to? Are we working to the standard that this board recognised 2 months ago was not acceptable? You know, where are we? Are we now have stayed where we are? But we need to look at this review, I think, a lot earlier in this process. I think to wait for a completion in October is probably a bit late.
I mean, I totally understand your point, and we need to look at that. And also, I think about the relet times as well. The target for that relet times need to be. So we'll look to. I'll discuss with Matt, and we'll look to review that date and try and we'll bring it forward. But it's how forward we can bring it. But we'll pick that point up and review that date.
Thank you. Any further questions on this one?
So the other thing I wanted to highlight is the decent home standard. Firstly, Katie was a bit modest. She talked about energy lead, which is probably the paper she's going to present later on. Is that, but she's been appointed as the interim strategic asset manager. And before taking up the role, she has been doing some work with the asset management team on the decent homes data, and taking into account all the works that we've done, the stock condition survey results. We've calculated, well, the team have calculated that we're 95% decency, which is a huge improvement that we've been reporting before. Because of the huge improvement, we're looking to get it validated by an external party, and we're planning to get the validation done before we submit to our annual returns to the government. So I think just say thanks for Katie for her work in that, and the team's work in that. And so therefore we're now working on what we need to do next year to bring that to the 100%, because a lot of it is around kitchens and bathrooms. We've got a huge budget next year for kitchens and bathrooms, so we should be really moving towards that 100% decency going forward by the end of next year. Apologies, still, this is 16. This is still my report. Yeah, so sorry, 0.3, decent home standard. And the last point, just really an update on the tenant engagement strategy. We've been doing some work on that, as you're aware, but we've sort of held back completing it until we see do the workshop on the tenant satisfaction measures, which we've now got a date for. And I think we think the data there and the discussion around the data from the tenant satisfaction measures will be important in terms of how that strategy looks. So that's my updates. But if anyone's got any further questions.
And sorry, that workshop is on the 9th of April, is that the one?
Third
one, yeah. Thank you.
Can we ask them to note the report?
Yes, we can. So can we note the report and pass that through? Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. I think we moved to item 9 now. Am I correct? And that's for Sharon. 7. 7. Oh, we moved on. Okay, you're back again.
So item 7. So this is page 27. This is really an update where we earlier on we were talking about we've got two main pieces of work about the responsive repairs. One is getting improving services now, but it's also looking towards when the contract comes to an end, or there's a break in the contract in 2027. And as we reported before, and this is an update, we're undertaking an options appraisal. Matt's appointed a consultant to undertake the works, and so there'll be and this is just giving an update of the scope of the appraisal and how we're taking it forward, and then also put some notes why we're using an external consultant. So I think that's itself self-explanatory. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions on that.
So I noticed this person started a couple of days ago, is that right?
Yes, Matt has had the initial meeting with them.
No questions? Thank you.
Just actually following from yesterday's meeting, which I think we discussed the scope, will it now include the option to look at other parties as well? Or potentially a multi-supplier arrangement rather than a single contract?
So yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Matt, but yeah, yeah. So there was just, but basically, I think there was some appropriate suggestions to increase the scope, and I'll raise those with Matt. But the councillors basically said there was other options that the councillors at ONS suggested last night, which can be included in the scope.
Yeah, so I guess the ONS will report back to the exec, and that will then firm up that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Executive, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the executive will be receiving quite a few suggestions from the ONS.
I look forward to that, Hugh.
Thank you. And we look forward to the suggestions that come through. Thank you. We're now on item 8.
Thank you, Chair. At last month's meeting, I presented the findings from the Regulator of Social Housing on our inspection findings, which were published on the 26th of February. This report formally brings the regulatory judgment to you, and in this report I am asking you to note the judgment and to support the improvement plan, and that this board will continue to monitor the improvement plan on a monthly basis. I did last month go through in detail the findings from the regulatory judgment in terms of the strengths and the weaknesses, so I won't go through those at this moment, but if you do have any questions, please do ask. What I'd like to focus on is how we move forward with that judgment and the improvement plan, and how we're going to monitor that. So as with the CT grading, the Regulator of Social Housing expects every landlord to produce an improvement plan to address the weaknesses that were found during their inspection. The council, as in the Landlord Services Department, had a number of improvement plans already in place at the time of the inspection, and the regulator recognised this. So we were already aware of the weaknesses within the department, and we had plans in place and have been working towards those plans. What we have now done is to develop a single plan, which is called the Landlord Services Improvement Plan. And this plan brings together all of the plans that we had in place. So I'll just give you an idea of the plans that I have looked at and reviewed to put into the single plan. So the actions come from the Responsive Repairs Client Action Plan, the Complaints Action Plan that was presented to you here in January, the Housing Management Improvement Plan, the Voids Action Plan that Hugh has just gone through with you, a Consumer Standards Review, the findings from the HQN mock inspection, and there are a number of others, but that just gives you an idea of how the actions within the improvement plan have come about. The plan is the plan for 25-26, so it includes the improvements that we will deliver in the next financial year. So in terms of the plan, we as officers will continue to work on that plan to the target dates within the plan. We ask that this board monitors the plan on a monthly basis, and I ask that we do a similar exercise as we do with the Responsive Repairs Client Action Plan, where we bring to you exception reporting. The regulator of social housing also with C2 organisations expects some regular ongoing engagement. Our first meeting with the regulator since the judgment was published will be on the 1st of April, and we will then discuss with the regulator how often they wish to meet with us, whether that be on a monthly or a quarterly basis. I don't know as yet until we've had that meeting. The regulator will focus on, in our engagement meetings, the regulator will focus on the weaknesses that they identified, and we have also shared with the regulator the plan that you have in front of you today, and we will be discussing that with them on the 1st. So this is a live document, the plan, and as we go through the year and as improvements are identified through customer feedback, through poor performance, we will add to this plan to ensure that all of our improvement actions are in one place. We do have meeting, as you mentioned, on the 3rd of April at 1 o'clock, which I hope that you've all received an invitation to from myself for the tenant satisfaction measures presentation and workshop. Once we've had that workshop, this plan will develop, because we will then add to the plan with improvements on how we're going to look at improving our tenant satisfaction measures. I have added to this report the financial implications, as I know we had a discussion last month. There were some questions around whether we have the budget to deliver this plan, and the financial implications and the comments here are from our finance department, which just gives you the reassurance that whilst there is lots of work to do, the actions identified in the plan are existing actions and were already budgeted for. And if there are further improvements that need to happen throughout the year, there are mechanisms in place to address this in terms of additional budget. So I hope that gives you some reassurance following on from last month's meeting. Hopefully we all had an opportunity to look at the plan, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
John.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple which are linked. On page 33, we talk about a revised safeguarding policy of distinguished hate incidents is in development, and there will be increased focus in this area. Obviously, that's a very important subject. Two parts to it. First of all, you say it's in development. Is it likely to come forward soon? Because I see on page 39, I think it is, we talk about the end of October, which is still quite a way ahead for domestic violence within the household. I am concerned that we've still not got these things in place, and it does concern our tenants, and obviously the police as well, for getting involved in these things. Have you actually got a definition of the hate crime you're using? Because, as you know, there's a lot of difference in types of hate crime, and I'd be very interested what sort of hate crime definition you'd be using when you develop it.
So yes, we do have definitions for hate incidents, and we have the community. I have to get the name right. It's the community and ASB policy. Yes, so the ASB policy, which has a title of, I think, Community Harm and ASB policy, does have the definition of hate incidents within that, and the safeguarding policy that's coming forward does also include clear definitions as well. The safeguarding policy is a council-wide policy, and my understanding is that it is currently at exec level. I believe, but I can double check that for you. And so it just needs to go through the formal process.
Yeah. If you could check that.
Yes,
so I'm
of
quite
course.
keen on this because it does affect our tenants so badly.
Yes, of course, yes.
Sharon, thank you for that. I think when we talked about this a few days ago, you said that you we're looking to incorporate a red, amber, green status on this going forward. Let me give you a nice difficult question for you. Which of these do you think are going to be really tough to do? You might like to think about that and come back to us on. But you know, it'd be good to understand out of all of these, which are going to keep us awake at night.
Thank you, Councillor Rivers. Yes, we will have a RAG status, so that will help make it easier for you to identify kind of the progress of where we're at, sort of at a quick glance. And in terms of the most difficult actions, I think I'll have to come back to you on that one to give you a very clear picture. So if I may bring that to next month's board. Thank you.
No further questions? Thank you. I'm sure we'll all have opinions of what will be the hardest to achieve, but thank you. Yes, Annalise.
Sorry, I'd just like to add to say thank you to the team for the great piece of work they've done in pulling together this single improvement plan. It was very clear through the inspection process that we had identified where we had weaknesses and we did have plans in place. And I think they said on more than one occasion, oh, it would be nice if this was all in one place. So we've delivered that. We've got, it's very clear for us. We can use it with our teams. It reflects the corporate strategy that then reflects our improvement plan to deliver decent and affordable homes. And we can use it as a performance management framework as well. So managers are responsible for individual consumer standard areas and then individual actions within the plan as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for the team for that, and I look forward to implementing the plan. And as I've been saying to the team, this is not a wish list. This is an actual to-do list, and we will be holding people accountable to those actions.
Thanks, Annalisa. Just one question on that. As it's a live document, firstly, it'll be looked at by the regulator, presumably on their monthly, quarterly visits. Is there a process for adding things to it or knocking, well, obviously knocking things off, that's fine. But is there a process for adding things as and when the council might identify extra things?
Yeah, as Sharon alluded to, this is a document that will evolve over time. So as we identify new areas for improvement, or if there's new good practice that comes out, or we identify things through the tenant satisfaction measures or customer feedback. So it is a live document. I imagine we will have a housing improvement plan in perpetuity. We will always be seeking to improve and to deliver better services.
Thanks for that. So
just to answer, I mean, any new items, I think we will highlight it on a monthly basis to this board if we've added additional items. So that's how we would be able to track the additional items that are added.
No, it's all right.
Joking.
Just on page 6 of this, 45, developing a vulnerable persons policy. You know, what are you actually looking at there? Because I mean, that's quite a big thing to be looking at.
Sorry, here, put your microphone on.
I mean, we'll be focused on the people that live in our homes, and it's around vulnerable people, helping them to ensure we're taking the relevant action or signpost people so they can sustain their tenancy. So it's a bit linked, and that's some work has got to be done how it differs from the tenancy sustainment policy. But it's about linking. Maybe these two policies will link together. But it's about ensuring vulnerable people we take the appropriate action to help them live in their home safely. And that would include us delivering direct services or signposting people to other services and supporting people if they're in difficult situation. Does that help?
Yes, it does. I mean, I was thinking along the terms of people that perhaps had a carer and then they don't have a carer because the carer has passed away or something. And that is a very vulnerable person that's left behind or even, you know, people with challenges, to make sure that they are sort of monitored, if you like, to make sure that they're happy in their home and safe, really. That's my concern.
And that's the kind of thing we put. We do have a resource to have a post to actually support this policy and the tenancy sustainment policy as well, going forward. So there's some work to be done there about exactly what it is. And I think the first thing we need to understand how vulnerable are our tenants, or what does it mean for our tenants to be vulnerable? I think you sort of really hit the point there. And because then we would then need to tailor the services to them, which goes back to the other point about knowing our tenants. Because we could all have a guess of what a vulnerable tenant is, but that might not be what our tenants are. So it's making sure we know what is required and we don't make assumptions, etc. So so the first piece of work would be actually understand what you're suggesting is at Waverley, what is a vulnerable person, and what services support do they need? I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I mean, there is a whole range of vulnerability, you know, from you know, people with mental health issues to people with autism and people with ADHD. There's a whole range of stuff, and it takes a lot of understanding to know exactly what their needs are. And this is why I was asking the question of how you would go about developing that that sort of policy.
And there's people with physical disabilities, and we've got some real complex cases because we have a panel. There was 5 cases we were discussing, which were not easy solutions, and we've really got this great 2 people working in the aids and adaptions who are really good at the amount of work they have to do to actually really identify what the person's need is and how we're going to meet it. And so and from these recent case studies, it's just really identified to me how much resource you really need sometimes to get it right. And I think we have got this resource, an additional resource, which we haven't used at the moment, which we need to use to make sure that these policies do work, because it is quite intensive, the time, staff time to get it right.
Yeah, thank you for that, Hugh, because the other thing is, if you know, again, going back to adaptations and that, it's knowing exactly what that person wants, and maybe they don't always pass their view on to you in the right way, but it takes a lot of understanding, as you say. So it is very time consuming, and you know, all credit to the people that have to work with people for their adaptations and that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to thank the team for some of the action they took in Azemir. We had a very vulnerable person who was unable to get out of their house except by one particular direction. And unfortunately, the neighbour put up scaffolding all the way around, and our vulnerable tenant couldn't get out. But I pointed it out to the team and they took action. I think it was the day or the day after. So I'd just like to point out that the team are working extremely well, particularly with vulnerable people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next one is number 9, and it's again the advisory board forward plan. Sharon again.
Thank you, Chair. So the Landlord Services Advisory Board forward plan, which I'm just going to share on the screen, if you bear with me. Would you like me to turn the lights off at all? Is that clear enough? Yes, of course. Thank you, Councillor Rivers. Is that better? No. Great. So the forward plan presented here today is the forward plan for the year for 25-26, and the actions from this have been derived from the improvement plan. So again, this is a live document. This will change as we go through the year in terms of if there are things that you as a board would like to see, this is where we will add it. And I expect to review this on a monthly basis for the next few coming months. But as you'll see, for example, in April we have the repairs policy coming to yourselves, and you will see that action in the improvement plan with also an April date. We have some standing items throughout the year, which would include the head of service report, the performance report that you receive on a monthly basis, the improvement plan update, and then a discussion around the forward plan. We also have some quarterly updates, which would include a quarterly complaints update that was agreed last month. And we also have the budget update. So the first one will be in May. And it was also requested at this board that we bring a quarterly damp and mould update as well. So that's scheduled within the forward plan. But as you can see, just moving down, we have forward plan actions for the rest of the year. And I'm happy to share this with board members for you to review. And again, I'll bring this back to you next month and each month as we move forward. So it's just if anybody had any questions, and if there's anything that you would like to, that's on the agenda that you would like to add to the plan at this moment in time. Thank you.
Sharon, the damp and mould thing is January, right? To review how it's going. Do you think we could have an update on the procurement process for the specialist contractor and how that is proceeding prior to that? Because is it October that Awab's law comes into action? And you know, Terry and I don't want to end up in a place with striped curtains that we can't get out of.
We can include an update on that procurement in the head of service report at the next meeting.
I'm very happy with that.
I think we should and we should have a clearer where that is going by the next meeting.
Thanks, you.
I think we should have it in place by the time next autumn comes. But we will be having an update on damp and mould before January. I think you mentioned January. First one we're gonna get is
June.
So you'll have an update how the last winter went. But we'll update you on the procurement at the next meeting. But June, you'll have a full review of how the winter went and where we are after the closure of winter. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any further questions on damp and mould? No, thank you. Sorry, we now move on to Katie, who's going to do number 10. Yes, on our warm homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So you'll remember, for those who attended the October 2024 meeting here, we gave a more broader update on the asset management strategy, which included some up-to-date statistics on energy efficiency, specifically around energy performance certificates, EPCs. And so in the report, I provided some updated background information on our energy efficiency targets from our asset management strategy. And specifically around EPCs. So I'm pleased to share an update that there's been some improvement in that area. So we've moved up to 71.4%. I believe we were at 68% before. Sounds like a small number, but every number is a home. And so that's a good improvement to be able to share. And in real numbers, that means that we've moved from 1,405 homes that are not yet an EPCC down to 1,319. So that's nearly 1,000 homes. So that's really positive. In terms of financing the work for energy efficiency improvements, we know that there's going to be significant costs available. That hasn't changed since writing the asset management strategy a number of years ago. And the situation is the same, that we must seek funding sources to cover this, what will be a multi-million pound expenditure. Hopefully you will remember, although it was some time ago, that we were successful in the Wave 2.2 bid for the recently rebranded Warm Homes Social Housing Fund. And we are in delivery to improve 59 of our worst performing homes up to an EPCC. That programme, delighted to say, is going well. We've had kind of overwhelmingly positive feedback from residents in particular, who've had solar panels installed. So we started off with quite a modest number of panels going in, and that's gone up significantly. So 2 homes to 36 homes now receiving panels. And we are still delivering cavity wall insulation and loft insulation to homes as well. We've put in some monitoring devices in 10 of those homes, so hopefully we can report back after a period of time to kind of say the success of the measures in number terms, but positive feedback so far on the performance of the contractor, so that's good to share. We are on track to spend the grant profile that scheme kind of puts upon us. So we're looking to spend 100% of the grant by the end of March, which is only a few days away, but I'm delighted to say that that valuation's gone well, and 100% of the grant and 25% of the co-funding as a minimum will be spent. So we shouldn't be in a position to have to give back any of the grant, so that's positive. And I suppose the main point of the report was that we wanted to share with you that we submitted quite an ambitious bid back in November for the next round of funding. Wave 3 is what I would refer to it as. And we have been provisionally allocated about 2/3 of what we requested. And so we're looking at just shy of £2.1 million to add to the £3 million that Waverley has committed also to the scheme over the next 3 years. So that time frame is April 2025 to September 2028. And we'd be looking to improve up to 339 homes. That was the number we put into the bid. We're currently preparing a scaled down version of that bid for approval by DESNZ. And so I'd be happy to bring back an update on sort of the finer details of the scheme once that's agreed. We're currently procuring a contractor to deliver the work, and we've received tender returns, and so hopefully I can provide an update on the chosen contractor once the process is complete. Any questions?
Thank you. That's a very helpful update. I have just 3 questions actually. In terms of the solar panels, can you just give us an idea of the installation cost per house? And a second question on that is, there's a feed-in tariff arrangement, I presumably. Does that come back to the council or does it go to the tenant? And then the third question is, the 2.1 million grant funding, and you said that will help for 339 houses. So do we just divide 2.1 into 339, which gets, I think, £3,000 or something? Is that a realistic assumption about the cost?
Thank you. You might have to remind me of some of the questions, but I'll start
Okay,
off with
sorry.
the cost per home for solar panels. So every home is required to have a full retrofit assessment and survey before any measures are proposed, costed, etc. So there's a real diligent process. But I would say on average, just the cost of the solar panel install without the prelims and things is up to £9,000 approximately per home. That's for a 2 kilowatt system minimum, which will provide the resident with savings on their electricity bills. And that's for this year. I would imagine there'd be an uplift for next year. However, we are using a framework, and so those costs will be fixed, be agreed and fixed. The feed-in tariff doesn't exist anymore, so that finished a number of years ago.
Nothing.
So the only available option for, I'm going to use the word income lightly because it is pennies, is to sell back to the grid any energy that is not used during daylight hours, because although the inverter that we put in may be battery ready, we're not putting batteries into these homes.
Is that for safety reasons or because there's no benefit?
It's I suppose in terms of the budget, because it's not an item that kind of pays itself back over time, we've made a decision at this time not to put batteries in, but they'll be future proofed. And I think development's doing the same. So that's for the future. And then the last question was around, so the number of homes. So the actual total project cost is the grant plus the co-funding. So it's just shy of 5.1. And as I said, we're submitting a scaled down version of the bid. And so myself and the team have been working on that. It's not as easy a sum as 5.1 divided by the number of homes. Yeah. So as I said, it will be up to 339. It won't be that full number. I can't go into details now. We're still going through the process. And also there's cost caps. So there's 3 different cost caps. And so how that is allowed to be smoothed across as an average, there's requirements for the scheme there.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? You.
Oh, yeah. Katie, great report. Thank you very much. And terrific amount of skilled work goes into this bids. Shame we just don't get loads of dosh. Do it in one thing. Just one thing. What is the process for introducing this to a tenant? I know they don't, if you like, get any choice in the matter, but how do we approach a tenant to say that we want to do some work to make their heating better and cheaper?
Yeah, so I think 2.1 million is a good start for a bit of dosh to do the work. So we are pleased with that. But in terms of the resident engagement, so although there's the requirement for us to achieve EPCC by 2030 for all of our homes, that's not just us, that's all social landlords. Residents do still have a choice in the matter, if that makes sense. So it's really important that we start off on the right foot and that we start engagement early. We made the decision last time, and we've made the same decision this time, to keep resident engagement in-house. So it's not something we're asking the contractor to do from the get-go. And so, as I said, the process will start early, so we're starting now. So any residents that, for one reason or another, were deemed ineligible for the current wave, where we've identified that they could be included in the next wave of funding, there'll be letters sent out. The strategy that we design will plug into the contractors programme. So once we know the contractors programme, we can align that all nicely. We've got resident liaison officer specifically to deliver the work with us. That's an in-house officer at Waverley. So it's a case of sort of ongoing communication, if that makes sense. And we did have a good trial of it for the last round, because although it only has 59 homes that we're installing measures on, we've done over 190 surveys. So we've communicated with several hundred tenants, households. So we know that it takes support from the customer service team, the officers, the contractor, and engaging residents early. Hope that helps.
It does very much. Thank you very much, Katie. I feel safe in your hands, and you, Sharon, of course.
Thank you very much. No further questions? So we move on to number 11, the dashboard. Performance.
Hi. So these are the areas that we're going to cover. So just to remind everybody, we are, after, not next month, but the month after, we are going to have a new format for performance reporting, which will give you how we've been doing across the year, or we have to say we're going to keep this format till the end of this year, i.e. so March, in April, we'll be reporting on March, which will be still the same format. Then when we report on April, in May, that will be the new format. So the first area is voids. So as I mentioned, we've already looked at the improvement plan. There's a number of actions that Matt has taken, some quick wins, which appears to have delivered an improvement. So we're now down to an average of 37 days. There was within those, and these were the properties that were let in February on average took 37 days. There was some that we were a lot less than those days, and we had two outliers that took a long time to let, which probably needs some further investigation. So really the mode kind of average, the middle sort of properties was around 29 days. So clearly there's big improvement, and the action plan seems to be working. But as I say, Matt and the team have got to just keep pushing to get those improvements.
Can I ask a question? I mean, how many people have we actually got on our housing list now?
To register, I always think about around 1,000. I haven't got the exact amount, but yeah. That's right. Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a crime that we would have any homes empty for many reasons, and we're going to see them for financial reasons. But if people need to have a home, and it's a crime that we should leave them empty. Chair, did you have a question?
Yes, the question was with the quick wins. Could Matt give just an example of what a quick win is? It's quite a change.
Mentioned earlier about being consistent with the dates. That helps big time, because if we only get 2 days notice, it starts, you know, that key to key time starts, and we've got nothing prior to back the information up. We know we're going in blind. So it's all about making sure we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, basically, and we do the post, sorry, the pre-works is just as important as the works that we're doing during the void process. But it's also there, just going back to your comment about the time. We have quite a few properties where they're hard to let, so we've done all the works, but we should be having queues of people waiting for these properties, and sometimes we have no one bidding for them, so it's frustrating sometimes.
Is there a reason for the fact that some properties aren't wanted, even though they're up to standard?
So people are sort of bidding for them, but they reject them because it's choice-based lettings. And I think some tenants will be able to probably explain this better than me. This is their home for life, so they want to make sure they can get the best home. And if they've got choice-based lettings, they are going to choose, and more properties that probably are not so desirable will be. More people will have to probably view it than normal. So I think, again, if I remember rightly, even within that 37, there was a number of properties that have been viewed 5 or 6 times. And of course, that then delays the time for the properties getting let. And that's, I think, choice-based letters is critical because people to have that choice. But I think it's to recognise that it will cause delays in the turnover of voids. So that, I mean, and it goes back to our earlier point, do we need to review the target, taking into account that people are having that choice and are making choices as well, and rejecting choices when we look at the time targets, because we've got the 25 days, and Terry's mentioned before, we just don't want to increase it just because we're not performing, but do we need to realistically look at that target to take into account the changes that are happening, i.e. people are deciding to be more choosy. Well, I wouldn't say that, but as I say, I go back to the justification for that, because it's going to be their home for life, and so therefore they are going to make, maybe if they think they can hang on to something better, and that's what they will do.
Thank you. May I just another point that I wanted to ask Matt? I think obviously 29 days is pretty good, but Are you still having sort of situations where some of the void, people leaving their homes are leaving them in a not very good state, and so it's taking a lot more time and expense to put those homes into good repair again?
In short, yes. And that's what we're trying to work with the officers to have the empowerment to say, no, you can't move, or you need to do this, or these are the things we need to do. And I think there's that lack of empowerment for our guys. But also what we're going to look at is it's one of my things I need to look at is the cost, because we are seeing increasingly higher levels of cost for voids because of clearance, and clearance has been one of those issues we've been trying to tackle basically. So yes, we do.
Just to come back on that, I mean, if somebody wants to move or whatever, surely it should be expected that they would leave that home that they're voiding or leaving in a good state of repair, or that not so much expense. I mean, I know of a property where it costs, and this is going back a few years, it cost £500 just to get the basics sorted out because it was in such a terrible state of repair. And surely that can't be right.
Yeah, so within the action plan, that's one of the things to look at, is actually to stop people moving if their property's bad. It's developing a policy and how we manage that. But that is an action within the plan.
Yes, I think there's, like we said, hard to let ones. I mean, you really, because of the geography of Waverley, there will be people in Cranley that won't want to go to Farnham, the house at Farnham, and so there's always going to be that sort of drop off that they want to stay in their own area. And I take the point about people leaving a property in a poor condition, and they shouldn't do, but there will be many reasons why that may have happened due to age or whatever. But I go back to the point I made before, that we then have to look at what they're going into. So, we can't expect them to leave a home in a good condition when they get to the place that they've been told they've got to fill holes in and sheds taken down and whatever else hasn't been done at the void. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing. Oh.
Yes, I mean, in terms of quality of decoration and issues around potential repairs, we would get an idea of that from the asset reviews. That's an ongoing thing. So there will be issues where we would be chasing up existing tenants to point out that the state of their home is not how it should be.
Thank you. Hello. I just wanted to say that, yes, we do have tenants that leave a property in a bad state of repair, but I'm very conscious I don't want to be perpetuating a negative stereotype of social housing tenants. So we also have a housing officer in place who is responsible for managing tenancy ends and tenancy starts. So he is doing some of that work around the property, and it's very clear within our policy that if your property, if you have damaged your property, then it would only be for exceptional reasons where we would accept you to move to another property. I think the majority of homes that are left in poor repair are following a death or a move to a care home or an abandonment. But as we move forward with our asset management strategy and we're keeping our homes in good repair, then as we come through and people leave and properties become vacant, then if we've raised the standard of all the properties, then it will be better each time. Because the other thing to bear in mind is that we do have an ageing population in the borough, and I remember with the first round of decent home standards, we had a lot of tenants who didn't want the work to be done. And if they said they didn't want the work to be done, they were taken out of the calculation. And so if these people are now passing away and leaving the properties that didn't have the original decent homes work, then we've got properties in a poor state of repair.
we continue to be 100%. We still have a high number of voids compared to previous years. Sorry, voids, I'm obsessed. High number of complaints. Just to say that we will be presenting a report next meeting, a quarterly report on where we are with complaints, which we will cover this upheld definition and how what usefulness that will is. So we haven't forgotten that, but that'll come to the next meeting. And if anyone's got any questions on that slide. And if we move to the next slide, it's level 2. Again, relatively a high number, but again, we're answering within the time scales, which is again, compared to a year ago, this is a huge improvement. Anything else on complaints? So next is repairs KPIs. So the one I want to highlight start off is the percentage of jobs over 28 days. And really, it's slightly increased to 17%. So this is of all the jobs that Ian Williams holds, 17% of them are over 28 days. And this is where Matt and the team have focused on clearing that backlog, because basically that's the definition of a backlog. And if we can clear the backlog, Ian Williams can manage their work a lot better, and we can manage them a lot better. So there has been some success compared to where we were at the last quarter. As I've mentioned in my head of service report, we're still really signing off their new improvement plan to bring that figure down even lower. And Matt and the team have got continuing to do that. The other real positive thing is the jobs completed in one visit. And that is so important, but don't really need to go into many details around that. But I mean, the key thing, it does improve satisfaction. So they've met the target of 86% of their, and this is the tenant's view, 86% of their jobs were completed in that first visit. And what we found, looking at the TLF data, those people have a 90% satisfaction rating, which is what we ultimately want, is that high level of satisfaction. So that's what, and therefore, but also the jobs where it's just not possible to do it in one visit, that's where Ian Williams got to focus on how else can we increase the satisfaction for those tenants to make sure they give us a positive score. And again, that is the work that Matt is doing. So going back to the backlog, until we clear that backlog, or when we do clear the backlog, the other KPIs will improve. And so therefore, at the moment, the other KPIs are a bit stagnant and the performance does not look good. But the real green shoots of performance improvement is that jobs over 20 days. And I think the next slide shows you where we are in terms of a graph highlighting that. So we've got 93 day-to-day jobs overdue and 101 minor works. And as we've discussed many times, this is where Ian Williams struggles. He's on these minor works where it's complex, there's a couple of trades, or there's one plastering and there's a lot of plastering to be done and they need to go back in and out. So again, Matt is working with them on that. And I think we're really confident we're going to see an improvement in March, and hopefully in April we'll be able to report a lot more positive figure. This is where we think the real improvement is going to be delivered. Don't know if anyone's got any questions on repairs.
I think it's good and encouraging to see it moving the right way. Repairs obviously can be anything, I suppose, but typically what is the highest volume of what you'd call a repair? And does that include mold and damp or not?
Yes.
It does. So some are going to take longer than others. So.
Yeah. I mean, the range of jobs in the contract, and this is one of the things we may need to consider when we're looking 2027, they have a range of things like changing washers on a tap to actually totally replastering someone's home because of whatever reason. And there's still one job. And you can imagine it's a different way to manage those two different jobs. And I think what we're finding from what we're finding from the data, they're finding it challenging to manage those this level of jobs where it's more complex, where they seem, which again, it's easier to manage any case, but to manage the simpler jobs, they're getting those, sorting those out. I think that's the challenge, is how do we deliver these, what we call minor works going forward, and to do that. And sorry, not to answer your question. So in terms of these minor works, is the damper mould, which can or may include fitted extractor fans, etc. Is making adjustments to people's doors, internal doors, to ensure the flow of air within the home, that kind of thing. So just describing that, you can just imagine how more difficult it is to manage that type of work with a tenant who's probably at work and that kind of thing. So that's what they're finding the challenge, because it's about, you can't do it in one visit. You have to go 3-4 times, which takes management, takes organisation, it takes communication, and we've repeatedly had this problem of communication, not only in Williams ourselves as well. So these are the things that we've got to resolve. I think how the reduction in the backlog, so the orange line is the backlog figure. So this graph just, really helps me sum up, really confirms there has been progress. There's still a way to go, and as I say, Matt and the team just can't stop putting the pressure on. We've got to keep pushing them. They can't think, oh, we've done something. They've got to do a lot more. Is got really no comment this month to make on that. Anyone else has? Next slide is our compliance. We've talked about smoke alarms in the previous meetings. We're now down to 279. This includes properties where we haven't got the full data, but the smoke alarms may have expired. So the majority of properties got smoke alarms, but we can't confirm when the expiry date of the alarm is. So that's what we're doing, some work around that, in visiting those properties to check the alarms.
I mean, I remember it's over 400, I think, the last time. So you obviously made some good impact. It's one of the problems, trying to get access with the tenants agreement, or is it you just can't get the people to go and do the visits quickly enough?
At the moment, this is about our data management, by not having a date. So we've got a record of an alarm being there, but we haven't got a date, the expiry date of that alarm.
So it could be a lot better.
Oh, yes, yeah. Where we have access, the top two, gas and electric at the moment is our challenge. So that 120 is around access. And the one there is around access. And I think going forward, we need to be more slicker on our access for electric certificates. But that's again managing data. So I suppose the areas to highlight is the smoke alarms and the certificates. To say the certificates is about access, the second one is about data, but because the only way we can clear up their data is by going out to doing visits.
Sorry to keep asking, but the electrical certificate, presumably that means the tenant has to take time off work to be at home to let the gas or the electric certificate, the engineer, to come in. So I presume that's a real problem if they obviously don't want to take time off work.
Yes, I don't think it's the sort of standard reason why we can't gain access. I think it's the frustration. I think my experience is people are willing to take the day off, but as long as we turn up, I think that's where we get the complaints.
That is the very problem, that people have been taking time off work, waiting in all day. Nobody comes, and they won't take time off again because they're losing money, which is crazy.
Which goes back to our get it right first time. get it right first time, everyone is happy.
I think just to jump in and one example really was one of our tenants that Hazelmere was the gas inspection, I believe, and had 3 appointments and they didn't turn up on 3 occasions, but they did make an appointment for a Saturday morning when it was convenient with the tenant, and I believe that's now been done. So if they're offering that, that's going to help.
Remedial actions from fire risk assessments and water safety. The fire safety, we're still doing some data validation with the contractor to be quite clear where we are with that. Water safety, we're needing to procure some works to undertake the remedial actions. So I've got nothing to report at the moment on any progress on those 2 this month. Next slide, damp and mould. These have increased to 49, as I think we would expect over the winter, and it's really when you get the update report in June, you'll be able to clearly see how we dealt with these 49 properties. But this is just giving you an indication of the volumes of work. Next slide. So this is the one
Excuse me, Hugh, can I just leap in on the previous slide? I'm presuming that the damp and mould issues have been addressed by Ian Williams under the guidance of our damp and mould officer. Is that right?
That's correct. So Ian Williams are fitting the extractor fans. Yeah. And clearing up, and clearing up the mould. Yeah. So they're the only contractors that we're using at the moment for damp and mould. Yeah. So the one I've already mentioned is the Decent Home Standard, which I think is a great move forward of the 95%, but as I've mentioned, it's subject to external validation. The stock condition survey, we're in the middle of a procurement for that new programme to start in the new financial year, which we've talked about, and Katie's already covered the EPC's strategy. Giving you an update on why those figures have improved. Next, again, this is just volumes of antisocial behaviour to give you a feel of what the team are doing, and one of the outcomes of the new antisocial behaviour policy that we've talked about was developing KPIs, and we need to, and communities was leading on that. We need to follow up with them about the KPIs on this, because they're looking to have corporate KPIs on antisocial behaviour. Any questions on that? In terms of the hate incidents, as Sharon mentioned, we're following the definition at the moment in the ASB policy, and we had 1 live case in February.
Can you just assure me that that's not that figure 1 that goes all the way through? That's not the same incident month after month. That is being resolved and is separate incidents.
So that February is a new case. Yep.
Hugh, if I could just drop back onto that one. We moved from number of audits done from 7 to 122 in a month, which seems wonderful, but I'm sure you could explain how that was arranged.
We've given an undertaking to do tenancy audits, which we're changing to tenancy visits, and if anyone else got a better name for them, but basically so tenancy audits or tenancy visits are to collect information on the household. So we know who's living in our homes, and to the point that we've already discussed, so we know how to tailor services to those people. We've given an undertaking that we'll visit each home in a 2-year cycle. So each home will be visited within 2 years, and we're going to be starting that on the 1st of April. We've been given additional budget to help with that process, because again, it's the collection of the data is just as important going out to do the visits. So we're all putting that into place, and that's from the 1st of April. But in the meantime, we're working with the team to actually get them to start working to those targets, because the targets will be around 180 a month we need to do every month and because that is just not, as I say, it's just not the visit, it's actually coming back, putting the data in the machine, and then following up on what's found when we do the visits. So we're really pushing the team to get used to doing these audits and actually dealing with the flow of information that comes from them. So this is our sort of change in culture within the team, a change in processes to get them to do it. So this by the end of April, when we report in May, we should be around 180 a month. Is that okay, Chair?
Pretty quick question, I may have missed it somewhere. Number of tenancy audits. The audit, have we seen what questions are being asked? I can't actually remember what we're asking.
I can't remember it coming to here. We can bring that back to the next meeting, and it would be good to have people's insight on it, because we've been talking that we do need to review that team, review the form, because we are starting off, because this is a big change for the team. Not a lengthy document for them to complete. It's just really getting that basic information and ensuring that the tenant isn't vulnerable, doesn't need any additional support. So looking to Sharon, in case we should be able to bring that form back to the next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it'd be good to have the board's insight into that.
And also it would be interesting to see again what we're asking, because it could relate to why young people aren't engaging as well, if the questions aren't really sort of geared to them or to some of the questions.
Yeah, so I think also when we bring it to you, we need to be clear why we're doing the visit, and so everyone's clear on that. And they might say, well, actually, why don't you do this? But I think we've talked about this, and we can discuss it further next month. I think we've got to be realistic on what at the beginning of the process, and not expect we can collect every bit of information from everybody. It's about getting that basic information initially, and develop and improve what we do. But I think a big thing is getting this culture change for the team to be doing it. And also, again, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it's so important. There's going to be a whole lot of data and actions to be out of these 180 visits. Even if there's like 10%, they find 10% of issues from the 180, it's still 18 sort of cases that we would need to follow up. So let's have a further discussion next month about that. And we all have got a joint understanding of what these visits are for. Because I think that's important, because we could be going off doing our visits and you as a board are expecting something else from them. So I think that's quite important. So thank you for that.
Thanks for that. I just wanted to add, as well as it being a way for us to collect data, it's actually a way for us to build a relationship with our tenants, and we want to improve that landlord-tenant relationship. So as well as collecting the data, we'll be able to signpost, give advice, talk about tenant engagement opportunities, how people can feedback. And what we really want to do is build that, continue to build that trust with that landlord-tenant relationship.
The next one is rents. Where are we? Does this show we're a bit over target? But by any case, I've met the target is 1.45, so it's slightly over target here in terms of. So this is percentage of tenants' rent arrears. This is the percentage of the debt related to the rent roll. That's just the definition of this.
and we've got a target of 1.45. We're just slightly over, but I did a review of the rent arrears this week, and by the end of March, we should be well within target at the end of the year. So the team, again, which we've had a number of reports, really dealing with vulnerable people, really doing a lot of intensive work to resolve rent arrears. And then the last there is the rent loss on homes that are empty, slightly down to 37,000, which reflects the improvement in the performance that we've talked about already. But that's still an awful lot of money. It's just money that's lost. No one gets it at all. And again, it reflects what Councillor Keane was saying about empty homes. We just got to minimise the number of empty homes.
And I think that's correct, and that you know, we've got to ensure that our white voids have to be done quickly, and we've got to get back in. I mean, a quick calculation was it wasn't quick because I did computer, but 222,000 we're talking about there. So we're in the sort of area of 700,000 a year, which is costing me, in a theory, £145 each year, and all tenants. So it's, you know, it's a loss to us as well.
I mean, I totally agree. It's, as I say, it's so many. I mean, we keep more priorities, but this is the one of the priorities because we just can't have homes left, if for no other reason, a financial reason, but there are other reasons as well. I understand this is just a snapshot. So the February figure, which I think was 37,000, how many homes would be empty at that point in terms of number of houses? How many were we talking about?
In 30 and 40, well, 30 and 40 voids.
So it's the same, yeah, same as mold and damp, really. I mean, it's not, the numbers are the same, right? Okay.
Last slide is just an update on the tenant engagement activities, again, just for information at the moment. Any questions on that slide? No? I think that's it. That's it. Yeah. So that's it, Chair.
Thank you. On my watch, we've got a minute left. On that one, we're a minute over, so we must be on time. Our next meeting is due for the 24th of April. Thank you for coming today, and the meeting's finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I would like to only ask the tenants panel and new members to stay one moment. I will talk to you about agenda, supplying you with the agenda, and another members of the committee. Just would you give me 5 minutes?